Hello, my absolutely beautiful astrology soulmates. It's me, Stormie Grace, and welcome to your weekly horoscope for the week of November 25th, where this week we are kicking off, coming into the week, not only at the top of the day with a moon void, of course, there on Monday, but also we're rolling into Mercury Retrograde in Sagittarius. So I'm going to talk all about that. And Sagittarius, happy birthday, by the way, is also going to have a beautiful new moon to welcome in birthday time. So we have got quite the week going on, and I do think that there are some hiccups we definitely want to talk through and look at how we can work with the astrology. So if we haven't met before, I'm practicing professional astrologer Stormie Grace, and I am an evolutionary and humanistic astrologer. And if that's the kind of content you're looking for, that is what we've got going on here. And if you are ready to learn astrology, this is the last week to get signed up for the Astrology 102 course, where we are going to be starting out 102 with aspect patterns. It's 5 weeks. We're going through all the aspect patterns, lots and lots of examples, lots of breaking down how you speak the language of aspect patterns. And we'll also be rolling into transits and continuing on as we go down the road. Now, the fun part about this particular class at this time is that as GAFA, the Grace Astrological Fluency Academy, is being built, the class is just $67 for all 5 weeks. You have lifetime access to the course, even the updates that come along. Lots of opportunities to learn to speak the language of astrology. So if that's you, click in my description box down below. Okay, we are going live with our weekly forecast. So you're going to have to give me just a minute, and I will go down in the description box when we're done. And I will put the timestamps, but there will be timestamps down below when you are watching back, okay? All right, let's jump in here and let's talk about what's going on at the top of the week. So first and foremost, as we're coming into the week, we're coming in on Monday, our moon day. And our moon day is governed by coming in on a void of course moon that kicked off on Sunday. It was a pretty long void of course moon. So we started at 10:34 p.m. and this is Mountain Time, Colorado time on Sunday, and it will go all the way until 4:19 a.m. Now, for some of you, you're like, girl, I'll be asleep. And I love that for you. But we do have some of our early morning workers or our overnight workers who are up at that time. So I want to offer this as an invitation for you to remember that at that time, even if you are working, allow your mind to rest in the places where you're holding a thought hostage or you're turning something over. It's best to rest. Right? The void of course time is best for some kind of rest, even if it's just a mental rest, even if you're up at that time and you're on your shift at 2 o'clock in the morning, nurses, doctors, surgeons, emergency workers, our bomberos, our firefighters, right? Take a deep breath if you can. Give yourself just until 4 a.m. Mountain Time to have a little bit of rest. So we're coming in though this week, to be clear, with the moon on that void of course energy. So it's not very stimulated. It can actually feel a little bit more held back as we're coming in on Monday. Now, just beyond that, we're going to see that the moon is going to enter into the vibration of Libra. Okay, so this is our chance once a month to, first of all, be checking in. Are you in right, balanced and harmonious relation to those around you, right? And not just those, just the people in your life, your romantic partners or things like that, but do you feel balanced? Do you feel like there is a place for you in the world? You are holding it, you are taking up space beautifully, and you feel balanced in relation to what is around you. This is a fantastic time to check in on this, but it is also great to consider, how does this work? How are your insides doing in your relationships? Is there something that feels like it's a little bit stuck to you and you maybe need to iron that out with someone? Do you need to do some journaling? Don't let your body be a coffin for old emotions. Get them out. Dance, do art, write, bang the drum. Let that stuff out. Your emotions, you don't want your body to be the place that they go to die. Okay, so let it out. Figure out what that needs to look like for you while this moon is traveling through Libra. Now, I'm always telling you guys to go get a little something to eat. Elderberry. And we have had this change of season just a little bit here. So depending on where you are in the world, I know that here in Spain, even though it's really still very warm to me, it's very cold to the Spaniards. And so there's a lot more emphasis on protecting yourself, making sure that you have good nutrition around having a cold or things like that so that you can prevent it. And elderberry is absolutely, absolutely delicious and a very, very Libran a Libran like food, herbs, spice to put in there. So bring that into your life. Now, later in the day, we're going to get to 8 p.m. again, Mountain Time, Colorado time, and we see Mercury going retrograde in Sagittarius. Okay. Several things to think about here is, first of all, as Mercury is going retrograde, Mercury is our planet of the mind. So our thinking, how we disseminate and how we gather information, how we process that information, the way that we communicate, the people we communicate with, how we get things done and process information. This is all mercurial. So if you have Mercury retrograde in your chart, I want you to take note that this can be a time where, instead of running in all the things I'm going to talk about right now, where we're all running inside to review them, your review may look very external, right? You've been thinking about going over something or having it inside for a very long time, and now it needs to come out. You need to actually make those decisions. Okay, so I just want you to kind of have that in mind, that if you have a Mercury retrograde in your chart, or maybe your Mercury has gone retrograde by progression, okay, you may actually be in a more external time than a more internal time. Now, either way, for all of us, as Mercury is going to turn retrograde, it is going to take this retrograde at 22 degrees of Sagittarius. So you want to be looking at, where's 22 degrees of Sagittarius in your personal chart? What house is this working in? Okay. We're going to start our retrograde at 22 degrees of Sagittarius and come all the way back to 6 degrees of Sagittarius. So the entirety of the Mercury retrograde here is going to work in Sagittarius. So likely you'll have it all in the same house, just depending on which house system that you are using. Either way, as Mercury is going retrograde, it's going to call our attention back, first of all, to where and what was happening in these houses, in these areas of our chart when we got to November 7th and we saw Mercury get to 6 degrees of Sagittarius. What was starting to come up for you then? This is when Mercury was entering into its pre-retrograde shadow time. So what started to come up for you that you were like, I need to start looking at this? Or maybe an offer or an opportunity came in, maybe something that was like a big project. Sagittarius is a very big idea. Maybe something started to come in for you at that time and you weren't quite sure what decision you wanted to make with it. You weren't quite sure what you wanted to do with it just yet. This is the time, as Mercury is taking this retrograde, where you will likely be in review of that. Any decisions, it's going to be time for review, re-edit, revise. You're going to be looking to maybe reconnect, reunion, all of these redoing kind of words. But what's the big idea behind them? First of all, it's Sagittarian. And Sagittarius wants to broaden its horizons, right? Sagittarius wants the big idea, the big thinking. Mercury is actually our planet that wants just the information, but kind of bit by bit. And Sagittarius is like, no, I want the whole taco. So as we're looking at the Sagittarian things we're doing, is that first of all, it's a great time to take a reflection on whatever has come into your life and whatever decisions you're revising at this time. What is your philosophy or your belief system that you are making that decision with? What is your belief system or your philosophy or your own personal truth, your spiritual path, maybe a long-held idea or ideology that surfaces during this time and lets you see how or why you are going to make a decision? It's a really, really great reflection period to be looking over that. Reassess what is the truth for you. Sagittarius are a seeker of truth. So what is the truth? What is honesty? When you're speaking the truth or you're speaking honestly, how are you delivering that information? Are you being blatantly and brutally honest, or are you being rigorously honest? Because one of them does damage and the other just tells the truth. So it's a great time to think about how you're doing that. Now, of course, we cannot miss that Sagittarius is also our massive traveler. This is a traveling energy. So this can be a time where you're reviewing travel plans, maybe something long distance. Think long distance, not just if you're going from your town over here to a town that's 2 hours away. I want you to think about something long distance, far away, that maybe you were making travel plans for. If you were trying to make travel plans at this time, they could get a little bit complicated. So just slow down and be patient. Look for those delays, look for those complications, look for those cancellations, look for logistical missteps that present themselves, because that can really happen at this time. But symbolically, when we think about this long distance travel, instead of just going from, Colorado to Bali, on a more metaphorical and metaphysical level, I think it's a question of, are you aligned with your own greater truth, or have you kind of strayed from your true north node, whatever that is for you? What is your guiding space? It's, you're keeping your eye on it out here, but are you off track with it? So Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius is a great time to have a review of that. Now we're going to see Mercury come out of its retrograde when we get to December 15th, and it's going to be there at that 6 degrees of Sagittarius, and then we'll see Mercury move fully out of its post-retrograde shadow time January 2nd of 2025 when it gets to that 22 degrees of Sagittarius again. And I promise you, if you have not listened to your 2025 annual breakdown with all 5 of the astrologers who did that video, you want to check it out, because there's a lot of information about the Mercury retrograde that a couple of the astrologers gave as well. So make sure you check that out and really use this Mercury retrograde time well. One other thing I want to share. I don't want to beat the Mercury retrograde to death, but I really want to point this out to you, especially for those of you who are learning. While we're doing this Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius, the impact is amplified or softened depending on what aspects it's making to other things in your personal chart. So if in your chart, you know that you have a square to Neptune and Pisces, okay, you're going to look at something being heightened here, some confusion around conversation that you're trying to have. You're trying to communicate something and it's really coming out sideways. Maybe something even seems too good to be true, or you're overly idealistic about something. It's going to be really important, if you're looking at that square or it's activated in your chart, that you avoid impulsive, fiery Sagittarius decisions, right? And you really look at the details to the best of your ability. The question here, if you've got that square to Neptune, I would be looking at, or even in transit, right? I would be looking at, are you viewing a situation as clearly as you think you are? Okay. So trines, let's talk about a soft trine for just a second. If you've got a trine, Mars in Leo kind of dance, that would be great. This is going to be a time where you're revisiting your courage. You're revisiting and you're reflecting on what sparks your inspiration. How do you move something forward? Because this is just a revision to a plan that maybe you had started. Maybe there was an entrepreneurial event that you wanted to do, you wanted to take on, you wanted to have children, your children wanted to take on something, and now you're able to move that forward. If you've got planets in Gemini, this is going to create an opposition for you. So in that, misunderstandings in relationships can just go through the roof. Okay, you're like, what's going on? Why are we on opposing sides? So I would be watching for that. And if you are having a conjunction of planets or points with this particular Mercury retrograde, first of all, I would be looking at merging the energies, because it can be really powerful. I think when you get, especially anything that gets close to that 27 degrees, the galactic point, right? Granted, this is just 22, but it's not too far off. Anything around that galactic point can be really powerful moments of insight that are being presented to you, okay? So you'll have to let me know how the Mercury retrograde journey is playing out for you. I can tell you my computer tried to crash today already, so that's how mine's starting out. Make sure you back up all your files. Okay, when we get to Tuesday, we're going to get about midday, and we're going to see the sun come into a trine with the north node, come into a sextile with the south node. Now, as these two energies are dancing together, first of all, the sun trine the north node, this is creating that ease. There's an ease of access and energy around you. And the connection to the north node is typically a destiny person or a destiny opportunity shows up, and they're showing you a lot of love, a lot of light. There's something that will change the course of things for you in that energy. Now, this particular north node is in Aries. So the activation is you're maybe taking yourself to something. You are doing it. You are going in that particular direction. So I would be watching for synchronicities. I would be watching for, is anything in some kind of review for you, and you're going back to it and you're taking yourself there and you're like, I'm making the decision on this. Maybe you're grabbing a mentor, right? If you're like, I need a mentor, I need a spiritual advisor, I need someone to help me navigate because I'm not able to bridge the gap here. Now, the sextile with the south node here, this is really lovely because it's making it very clear to you that as you're on your journey, you don't know what to do. So making it easier for you to let go of the south node point where it's like, listen, I'm out of balance here in some way, and I'm not quite sure how to get to the other side by myself. So it's a great time where that sextile lets you go, okay, hold on, hands off. Is this actually supporting my journey or not? It's not. Okay, I get it. Sometimes though, when we're dancing with that south node stuff, we will just hold on. I don't know about you, but it's like sometimes you can see the claw marks that I've had in something by the time I let it go. So this will make it a little bit easier. Rolling into Wednesday, we see the sun come into a trine with Mars. Start something new. Start something new. Now, Mercury's retrograde. I know I just told you to be in the revision. Start something new with the old stuff you had. That project that you left over here sitting around and you're coming back to and you need to revise it. It needs this editing. It needs the whatever. Do it. Take it on. Do it. Give it your all. Put into it. Start even reviewing what you could potentially do with it, right? It's a great time to do it. What do you want to do? The sky's kind of the limits. If you go back, I think that you have everything that you need around you. Where's that course that you bought that you didn't finish, or you've been saying, I don't have time to sit down and do this? Where is this when you can make the decision that you're like, okay, I'm going to sit down, give myself 10 minutes a day to just work on this, but this is what I'm going to do. Some people, Sun trine Mars, sometimes you can feel like you have a little bit of extra energy running through your body, you're coursing through your veins, right? So it could certainly be a time where you're feeling extra confident, extra sexy, extra like, who is this? And you're like, oh, it's me. You can have some of that energy. And if you need a little bit of that, you've been craving a little bit of that, then I wish all of that energy on you. Just be mindful. We are in the space where Mars is in its pre-retrograde shadow time. So maybe if it didn't work out with said person, don't give them any more of your sexy, okay? Unless you've sorted that all out. Okay, when we get to 2:14 a.m., we are going to see that the moon has moved into a position of void of course. So I just want you to be a bit mindful of that as you're traveling through Wednesday, because again, it's a little bit longer of a void of course day. So go back, start the new thing that's really the old thing, get it done, right? And as you're traveling through the void of course, because it's longer, when we're not getting all of this reflection back at us, the head game can kick in. I know I say this every time we have a long void of course, but I hope that it's sticking with you, because you can start to think, well, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling this way? Oh my gosh, it's not working out. Something's wrong. And it's for some people, it can bring on panic attacks, right? Because you're not getting this massive reflection and aspecting back from other planets. So at this time, just remember, it's a nebulous energy, but the long reflection time is also helping you build a little emotional stamina to breathe, to come back to your center 100 times a day, if that's what you need to do to understand how to make it through that particular moment, to breathe through what's coming up, maybe jot it down, put it on paper, something like that. Again, don't let the emotions, don't let the fear, don't let what you're thinking about just live in your body as panic, okay? After that, we'll have the moon shift into the vibration of Scorpio. So now you can dig in and deal with all of that stuff that presented itself during a very long void of course. So 5:20 p.m. Mountain Time, we're going to see that the moon shifts into Scorpio. Now, this is your time to check in. What are your motives? What are you doing? Why are you doing what you're doing? Where is it coming from? Is this coming from something that you really want? Is this coming from an outdated instinct? Is this, what's subconsciously driving you to do something or take on something? It's a great time to be emotionally your own little detective as to what's going on with you, because what you're going to find out when the moon is in Scorpio, what we find out is that we have the capacity for a depth of ourselves that is not only wildly outside of our normal everyday experience, but that our deep selves, regardless of what we think about it, it's beautiful, it's passionate, it's scary, it's vulnerable, it's sad, that it's worth savoring. We're worth savoring at every level of our beings. And the more we're curious about the emotional twists, tangles, sparkles, and frills that we have in our being, the better we can live. The more intuitive we are with our fellow man, the more forgiving, the more able we are to see some BS coming when it's coming our way, right? It's a really, actually, I think when the moon is in Scorpio, over the last few years, I found a lot more depth and forgiveness in that vulnerability as it relates to us relating to other people. So it's a really beautiful energy. And if you wanted to have a little snack and you wanted to bring in some hot mustard, maybe you want to bring in some cardamom. I feel like cardamom is a very Taurus energy. Now, I know they sit in oppositions, they're polarities, but I feel like cardamom is just a little bit more Taurusy. But I suppose if you put cardamom with something like the turmeric or something a little bit more spicy pepper, maybe we get scorpionic with it. Whatever you have, if you have a snack, please let me know, okay? All right, end of the day, we see Venus in a square to Chiron. So this is the challenge. We're squeezed. The square is the 911 aspect. It says you're going to do something to get out of the square. We're in a jack in the box here, right? You don't want to get squished under this square. So as we're looking at this, it's about, first of all, it highlights the chironic piece, a piece of us that is, it's vulnerable. It's vulnerable. It's our identity. My identity feels vulnerable, has felt like I don't even know what it is at this particular time. But the thing I want to have us recall about Chiron, especially in Aries, is that a lot of good work over the last few years has really been done with that Chiron piece, right? We're not working with the old identity anymore. We're not working solidly with the wounds that were to the identity before. Now there is a version of us that is healed, that is ready to live this new identity, but the new identity does come with its own growing pains as well, right? So as Venus is squaring against Chiron here, first of all, it's an energy that I would say take into it compassion and empathy for yourself, for your identity, for the identities of people around you, right? Because what's happening here is there's like a realization. It's a really vulnerable realization of how maybe you've reparented or something in you still needs to be reparented. We're looking at a lot of old philosophies and ideas this week. Mercury Retrograde in Sagittarius is literally saying, what's my belief system that got me to where I am today? So where are you being reparented at the level of your heart in some way, because you're not able, that Venus is not able to draw to it what it would like, because your identity, although much healing has been done, is still got some belief that's not quite working. Now, another expression of this is that someone else could be today where you were before, and you're able to kind of help them rewire their belief system to live more fully in their current identity because you found your way out. So in this way, we get to see Chiron as that healing energy, that guiding energy, which is really beautiful. Okay. Now we're going to have that energy going through. It will carry through all the way until we get to Friday. Now, on Friday, very late in the day, very late, 11:18 p.m., we've got another void of course moon, and it's going to go until 4:52 a.m., taking us into Saturday. Again, energy is not really active, so allow yourself to have some downtime. Now, depending on where you are in the world, in the United States, we're going to have Thanksgiving that's going on there. We're going to have Native American Heritage Day that is happening that Friday. So there are some things going on where there's more of a sense of gathering. So you maybe even will want a bit of the downtime. But Saturday, early a.m., 4:52 a.m., the moon now shifts into Sagittarius as we get prepared for our new moon event. First of all, as the moon shifts into Sagittarius, for some of you, this may be your lunar return for the month. So what's happening for your lunar return? What is the theme of emotional work that's popping up for you for the next month? If you don't know anything about your lunar return, I'll put a lunar return video at the end of this to explain what that is. But check in. This is the time to look at. You've had all this scorpionic energy coming up. You've been sifting and savoring through the depths of yourself. So with that information in hand, what truths do you carry about yourself today? Are you telling the truth about yourself today? And with this truth in your pocket, in hand, Where is your next adventure? Where are you ready to go? You're ready to go beyond your own horizons. Where are you ready to hold a new truth? Where are you ready to teach? Sagittarius is a great teacher. Where are you ready to teach something? And that's the adventure. It's not just, oh, I'm a teacher. It's the adventure of being a teacher. And at an emotional level, right? That's the kind of teacher I'm talking about. The teacher from the heart is the one that can present itself here. Bring in a little sage and basil, and I think that'll also help things along swimmingly. End of the day, depending on where you are, we see the new moon happening at 9 degrees of Sagittarius. Okay, so at the new moon, we are planting our seeds of intention. First of all, I just want to say that I like this particular moon because it's the birthday moon. I feel like when you get to the new moon of the month and you get to your birthday moon, it's like, happy birthday. This is your chance to the Sagittarian area of your chart to really plant your seeds of intention, to begin something new, begin the new adventure. I know what I've seen. I know where I want to travel. I know what I have to teach today. I know what I want to publish, market, broadcast, advertise, where I want to stretch my wings. I know a new philosophy that I want to guide my life. I want to find a different outlook on life in general. Plant your seeds of intention. Plant them with optimism. Plant them with enthusiasm. Make it light. Make it bright. Make it something that you really want to take the journey on. And plant your seeds of intention to begin that adventure. Now, of course, every moon lives in its own lunation family. So you're planting seeds of intention to begin the journey here. And you're beginning a 2.5-year cycle here. We're going to check back in on what's going on in this garden that you're planting right now, August 31st of 2025. And we'll talk about this in your new moon video. But we're going to plant these seeds of intention right now. Now that's going to roll us. That energy is happening later in the day. So it's going to roll us beautifully into Sunday, where you have that vibration to work with for the entirety of the day. I find that lunations are the most powerful a few hours before they happen, really up to 8 hours afterwards. That's kind of that window to really soak up all the juice. However, we do look at the lunations too, from lunation to lunation. So you've got the next 2 weeks to really be with this. And remember that Mercury is also retrograde in Sagittarius. So maybe where you're saying you want to go is coming from reviewing where you've been, right? I had this really cool experience this weekend. We were traveling up this hill to go look at this castle. And first of all, I feel really good. I feel like I'm going to have buns of steel next week. So I am excited about that. But also, as we were coming up, we turned around and we kept looking back, and it was like, oh man, we made it up this far. Oh man, we made it up this far. And I was thinking about what I was thinking about as we were climbing this hill. And it's like, yeah, 5 minutes ago, I was just thinking about this thing over here. And now I'm on to this whole new thing as we're heading up to the goal, right? So it's sometimes the looking back that really gives you the celebration of, first of all, who you've been, where you came from, what your mind frame was like when you were there, and where you're going next. It lets the bigger picture come a bit more full circle, I think. At the end of the day on Sunday, very late night, and the energy will actually carry into Monday. But in case you're some of our friends who are up, we're going to have Mercury come into a trine with Chiron, and this will be at 11:16 p.m. again Mountain Time. And in this trine, Mercury is retrograde. Okay, Chiron is going to be retrograde and stay in its retrograde until December 29th. So everything is looking back. First of all, stay curious, stay open. Stay curious, listen to what your head-heart connection is saying. And if you feel lost in it, right, listen to what your heart is saying to you. This can be a day, I do think, that heading into Monday, there can be a bit of challenge that comes up in relationships, because it's like you're discovering something about yourself. You're discovering something where you're like, wow, that has really been driving me for quite some time. And I don't know that that's true for me anymore. And it kind of creates this contention in your relationships. Not to mention, we also see that as the moon was going through this travel, it comes into an opposition with Jupiter, more Sag Jupiter energy. And this is pretty upbeat, but it's still this contention. I'm on two different sides in my personal relationships. So you may feel that energy being a little bit challenging, but I would say listen to your heart. Listen to what your heart is saying to the best of your ability, review what's coming up for you and see what you really think about it. It's like put all the cards on the table and see what you really have to work with before you are impulsive about any kind of response that's coming up. And what you do see when you lay those cards out, if your partner, a business partner, someone else lays their cards out on the table with you, look at it and say, okay, where can we solve this? In the big picture, what do we want from the big picture? Do we want to have unity? Are we going for unity? Okay, because if we want unity, how do we solve this? What's the big picture answer to what we're going for? You know, my husband and I had a conversation a few years ago. We were both kind of busy going and doing things, and we were missing each other a little bit. And we had to have a conversation and say, what do we want our house to feel like? What do we want our home to feel like? What do we want? What is the big picture of what it is that we're doing and we're going for here, so that we can be solution oriented towards creating that to happen. And it's also a little bit easier with all of this turn back in energy to say, yeah, what is it that this new identity, Chiron retrograde in Aries, that this new identity needs, where it was maybe working with something that was a little bit more broken or a little bit more damaged or a little bit less compassionate. And now I see what this version of me really actually needs today, currently. All right, beautiful friends. I hope that you have an absolutely gorgeous week. I'm going to go down there and put those timestamps in the description box right now so that you make sure you have them as you're checking out this video. But before you go, please make sure you check out your lunar return video that is at the end of this particular stream, because I want you to know what's coming for you emotionally. And if you didn't know, or you're newer to astrology, that you have something that comes up for you, that you have a lunar return every month that can tell you a lot about the theme that you are working with. And I definitely want you to make sure you click down below and get your natal chart if you don't have your natal chart, so you can see where the Mercury retrograde, where the new moon is happening for you, so you can understand your ascendant, your midheaven, sun, moon, rising, all of that. So make sure that you have your chart, because the best astrology for you is your astrology. All right, beautiful friends, I love you, and I'll see you next time. Bye.